close their eyes. What's it gonna take to wake us all up? Fear and propaganda's overflowing your cup. Walking around in the days with fear on the brain. Living like that will make you go insane. Do you think or just repeat what you see? Programmed to be a slave as you watch that TV. Follow that bouncing ball and sing along. You just a puppet on a string and that's all. How could you let yourself be controlled? Buying up the lies that this media sold. You're scared to live and you afraid to die. That's what you get for believing their lies. Wait, if I could awake to this alchemical state, I'd transmute out of time, out of space. But I'll stay for one more day and scream to the others the truth in your face. Learn to be brave. Stop being a slave, come out of your cave, wipe the dust off your brain. They say 9/11 changed everything. The only thing that changed is the way y'all think. They're only cowards holding on to their power like little fairies hiding up in their ivory towers. Stuck in a cage full of violence and rage, shitting on the world with this murder rampage. Nothing stands between you and creation. You gotta move from pain into vibration, lest you forget when the new cycle dawns. If we are in a chess game, are you a pawn? Well, I'm a king in the land of awareness. What you think of me, motherfucker, I could care less. It's a shame my compassion has to end, right where your ignorance and fear begins. People like you come a dime a dozen. Always do what you're told and never question nothing. I know you used to have a free mind, but dog, you let them take it a piece at a time. That little light in your soul is starting to burn out. If you just wake up, you can turn it around. Truth is out there. We need your help in this fight. So come on out of the darkness and into the light. Wait, if we could awake to this alchemical state, we'd transmute out of time, out of space. But we'll stay for one more day and scream to the others the truth in your face.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the next episode of the Exploration of Consciousness. I'm your host, Matt Presti. It's a great honor to welcome Yerasimos, Stilianessis, and Joel Rafidi to the program. Welcome, gentlemen.
Bro, that track was dope.
I love it.
That G'd me up, man.
2005, I wrote that.
2005?
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Yeah, that was fitting, I felt, for the opening intro. We're going to be doing a little bit of music in this particular podcast, so it's great to have you guys on board. Everybody basically in my audience, I'm sure, is familiar with the Here for the Truth podcast, and let's just run that link in case you aren't. You guys got to check these guys out. Fantastic platform, really killer material. Substance and meaning and all the good things that make for a great podcast. And why don't you guys just, if there's anyone here that doesn't know who you are, give a quick intro. We can start with Yerasimos.
My name's Yerasimos. I mean, where do I start? This is such a long story. But yeah, I mean, I teamed up with Joel. Just keep it short. I teamed up with Joel in 2021, and we met online. Joel actually saw an episode that Sophie and I did on the Unslaved podcast, talking about awakening somatic intelligence. And, he was impacted by the episode. He hit me up on Instagram, and then I checked out who this dude was, a conscious hip hop artist into a lot of amazing work. And we started a dialogue, and then from there it took off. We recorded our first episode. I mean, there's so much more of the story there. As for me, I'm just someone that loves truth, man. I love diving deep into who I am, why I am the way I am, and like what I'm meant to do in this world. I've been curious from early on, and interested in a lot of different subjects. I would say getting into, I got into more of the truth-seeking journey through health, 9/11 as well, but through health and really seeing the incestuous relationship between the scientific establishment, the medical establishment, media. I was hooked from there. I was very, very curious and open to challenging my beliefs whenever new information came along. So, I mean, that's all I got right now. I mean, there's so many different things to share about who I am, but that's it.
That's a great intro. Thank you, brother. And Joel Rafidi.
Yeah, man. It's always a difficult question to answer, because I feel like we're going to get stuck in these paradigms, about these stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we've been through in the past. Man, I'm a creator, bro. Like, I create, bro. That's what I was born here to do. For me, there's just been this core within me where it's like, I don't want to relinquish what I know of myself. I don't want to relinquish what I know of my potential. I don't want to relinquish of what I know of what I'm here to do, of what really excites me, of what really lights me up. And that creative force from within has always just been ultimately more powerful than, any other inhibiting or descending force outside of me. And like the last 3 years since meeting Yerasimos, I just feel like that's, really been cultivated in a really powerful way now. This synchronicity, this meeting between he and I, this was meant to be, on so many levels. And I just feel absolutely blessed to day in, day out, be able to get to do what I do, which is, have conversations with some of the most amazing minds and researchers and people that I looked up to for so long before ever knowing that I'd be friends with them, including you, Matt. Like I listened to multiple of your podcasts, and then now here we are, we're mates, we chat, we connect. Same with Michael, same with David, same with these people. I got the freedom to, be my creative self, create music at whim, and just walk that authentic path. And I'm just grateful and blessed to be able to do that.
Well, you guys have certainly, in the last couple of years, put the art pedal to the metal. I got to give you that. 145 episodes.
Yeah, 145, I believe.
I mean, that's crazy. But let's share the screen real quick. I want people to get a little view of the website here. And guys, got to check this out. Really great stuff. Yep, 145 guys. Amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really inspiring because as a fledgling podcaster, actually I started my podcast back in 2010 and it ended up morphing into an entire series on Walter Russell's work, and eventually became more of a production company. Did the Wonder of Seven video on Frank Chester out in California. I don't know if you guys ever saw that or not, but
No.
just a lot of really cool productions came out of what was intended to be a podcast. But really, I think it's a creative expression that when you are, as you said, Joel, a creator, it bubbles up. You got to let it out. Otherwise you'll end up, taking people out or something. But so how did you guys get into the creative process? And we can start with either one of you, but when you create, what is your inspiration when you get into that creative mode?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, like, I think coming together was a creation, like us coming together and our unique constellations of being coming together and how we operate with one another, like feeds each other, like feeds into each other in terms of what we do. I mean, I know for sure there's no way I would have been able to do this on my own. There's certain skills that I don't have that Joel has, especially on like the more creative technical side. But like to have each other and to almost hold each other accountable, and to, as two generators from a human design standpoint, we're lit up and we get excited. And when we spend time together, it fuels one another in some way. And it's just been, I don't know, it's been awesome. And we sit down and we're consistent. And I think that's important with the creative process too. You can have all the ideas you want, but if you don't sit down and put effort into taking action, like nothing's going to happen. But
yeah, we're like little kids, like on this path, like from the moment we started, it's like any little step that we make above the ladder, like we get so excited, like every single time. Like I remember we got our first 50 downloads, 100 downloads, 1,000 downloads. Like every single time, it's like, holy shit, this is happening. You know, and there's always been pinch yourself moments along the way. It was like, is this just going to crumble under my feet at any time? But no, it feels more solid than ever. And like, what lights us up about it, man, is this is the perfect outer expression of what we're so inspired by internally, which is this truth-seeking process. You know, so our evolution is very much, our internal evolution is very much so tied into what we do externally as well, and they both feed each other, vice versa. And what we're both most inspired by, like, I think, is like growth. It's about potential. It's about venturing into new horizons, you know, mentally, somatically, on all these levels, building new relationships, seeing the way our external reality shifts as we continue to do what we do, have these conversations, build our network, inspire other people. And I feel like we become, you know, better and more powerful and more creative as a result of that as well. Like, we've got big dreams for where this is going. For me, like, yeah, it's been 3 years, but to me, it's like we've barely taken the first step in terms of where I think what's possible. You know, like, we want to do documentaries, we want to create movies. You know, I want to create an album. There's just so much on the horizon, and to continue to have that anchor and that groundwork of getting to have the conversations that we do on the podcast. It's like, I feel so blessed even to like just be alive at the same time as we have this art form of podcasting, because it's so brand new in so many ways, but ultimately it's just the perfect expression for someone to walk their authentic path and be able to network with other people and to get heard by an audience that really resonates on a deep level. And that just is the perfect really fuel and breeding grounds for creative expression, because it can go anywhere.
Yeah, it's well said. It's really a creative expression, especially with the podcast world. I like to call it the new media.
Yep.
It's really, it truly is. I mean, that song at the beginning, you know, talks about how the media is manipulating, and I saw it coming out of 9/11. They got me that one time. I said, "You're never going to get me again," and I made it an effort. I wrote several other songs besides that, but having nobody to talk to about 9/11 except one other guy in all of St. Louis, growing up there and working there, it was depressing. So, you know, my only outlet was music.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a lot of lyrics. I wrote a lot of songs that were about 9/11 and the lies. And I think some of the only artists to be doing anything at that early period were few and far between. I think Tech Nine was one. There are other artists who, you know, rap artists and others who saw through that, but it was a very lonely time, you could say. But now what I'm seeing is just, you know, when people ask me why is everyone asleep, I'm like, man, you should have been around in 2002. You talk about people sleeping, that was a sleepy time. I mean, I had just heard of Michael Tsarian back then, and Alex Jones, and all kinds of other people. And then I discovered Jordan Maxwell, and then Edward G. Griffin, which you guys interviewed, and that was an outstanding interview. And speaking more to the show, you guys have done 145 episodes. I could ask you who your favorite guests were or not, but I think
Matt Presti. Matt Presti, I think you might be familiar with him.
well, I don't know about that, but this show today is brought to you by HereForTheTruth.com.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah, man, check it out. You gotta love that. But we're going to run a couple videos. We got some really cool stuff to talk about. I want to move into the course for the Here for the Truth, the Rise Above the Herd.
Sure.
Really interesting. I would myself love to take it. You suggested I get a book, The Romantic Manifesto, yesterday, Joel, by Ayn Rand. And that I actually thought I had because I ordered all her books, but I've discovered, oh my God, I don't have it. Strike that. So I ordered it within minutes, you know, realizing that it wasn't on the shelf. But I've literally got a book list 5 miles long that I have to read. So that's been added to it. But just to talk about the course a little bit, I think this is going to be really interesting. Like I said, I'd take it myself, but I'm so stacked for time that you got to really choose where you put your time, especially I think when you're in the creative zone, it's, you know, your creation comes first, of course. And would you guys want to just talk about the course for people who don't know about it? And I got a couple questions to follow up on that.
Do you want to start,
You
Joel?
take
or-
it, bro.
Well, I think, being an individual is so important to us, and really like knowing yourself on the deepest levels, and like, who are you and what do you want to do and how do you want to give your gifts in the world? And so, we started our podcast and we were like, okay, great. We're having these great conversations. And at the same time, like good capitalists, we wanted to be able to, create value in exchange and receive value for that. And, we've been on this truth seeking journey. We've been on this individuation journey. And so in essence, the program is a synthesis of a lot of the great minds and great systems and modalities that have impacted us, that we wanted to, put together and create a course to help support people on their individuation journey, how they can get more self-confidence, more self-esteem, to really deprogram from a lot of these disempowering ideologies that we've been fed our whole lives, and to kind of stand more in their power and to reclaim their power so they can move into the world and take more ownership of their lives. The social, engineers, they want you to feel disempowered. They want you to feel weak. They want you to feel helpless and like there's nothing you can do, but you can. And like the power is within. And so, this program is a way to inspire that within individuals, or to remind them, of what's there and what's present within them. And we've run it 6 times. We're on our 7th run right now, and it's been incredible. And we wanted it to be a source of community, like you said before in 2002. Oh man, like I can only talk to 1 or 2 people about these things.
Right.
Same thing for me in the early days, when I was challenging things in the health field. People thought I was insane, or if I questioned climate change or global warming at that time. And so as 2020 hit, more and more people were waking up to certain realities. And then by doing that, that's a lot of times started them questioning, well, what do I want to do with my life? Where do I want to put my energy? And so we've attracted, I think, an amazing community of people that really want to do real work, not just like fluffy work, like really dive in and help dissolve some of these layers and to get them to know themselves in a deeper way. So it's not just like, oh, here's some information. We're covering a lot of different angles. We're bringing the somatic piece. My wife leads 4 nervous system focused calls. So there's just a lot of different elements that we wanted to put together.
Fascinating. Do you want to add anything, Joel?
Definitely, Yerasimos, I think, covered a lot in that. But yeah, man, it's like, to me, for someone who's truly interested in, like, our ethos since day one has become who you were born to be. Like, we all carry this unique seed of consciousness which wants to sprout in a very unique way. That the blueprint for the oak tree already exists within the acorn, and I think our job in Rise Above the Herd is just to nurture that blueprint and that unique seed of consciousness, because all of us in life, everything that we've done, all the obstacles that we've overcome, all the relationships that have come and gone, I think it's all pointing us in a very unique direction for each of us. And I think when we get the chance to take a look at the culmination of what my life is pointing me towards as my authentic creative path, none of our passions, none of our desires, none of our inspirations are random. So how do we really just become a friend to ourselves in such a way where we can honor ourselves to the degree that we're willing to walk that path and take those steps and no longer inhibit and subdue that creative life force? And I don't think not that I've seen exists a more holistic program being able to nurture and cover that experience for an individual.
Yeah, and I can attest to both these guys' authenticity. You guys walk your walk, and that's really super important in today, especially with anybody giving any kind of advice, whatnot. So, you two, again, like I said, you guys are an inspiration, and I think the way I witnessed the whole reaction of many different people that I thought had really come along in terms of the COVID and the government conspiracies and all this stuff suddenly revert back to a warlike state of mind. One went black or one went white. They instantly shot over to the wings. And I like to say wings are for flappers, right? And we witnessed like a mass polarization ritual, which is what the elite are so good at. But you guys really, I watched, especially you, Joel, having, roots in Palestine as well and being Palestinian yourself. Not that a label means anything, but just the wholeness with which you handled it, and you kept a clear head when it could be very easily, a person could get pushed into one camp or the other. And I'm seeing literally people falling out of the trees, conservatives that I had respect for, even liberals, which blew me away. I'm like, I remember I call myself, if I have to use a label, just for people to understand that I'm sort of a conservative liberal, or you call me a liberal conservative, the middle of the middle of the middle, which means I don't pick a side, basically the same way as saying that. But people that I had respect for that I completely lost when this whole situation happened. And, it was the people that sat on the fence and didn't jump off to one side or the other who made it through unscathed. And I just want to say kudos to both you guys for keeping your heads together, and if you're to pick a side, pick the side of truth. And the truth is that in all this morass, innocence is the real victim, children, women, men that want nothing to do with this. But before we go into that,
I just want to highlight something too.
Sure.
When you pick the side of truth, like especially with some global event, it doesn't happen like the minute after a news report, the minute after you hear about something happening. And this is where like doing really important inner work and building greater capacity within your nervous system and being open to new ideas is important, because if we're just getting like, listen, emotions are important, of course, but if they run your life 24/7, if you can't get a hold of them, if you can't create some separation and know, hey, there's more to me than just this emotion that's present right now, it's very difficult to get to truth. So, like, again, this isn't an issue that I'm, the whole Israel-Palestine thing that I'm so highly knowledgeable on. Yes, I have some understanding, but I have some knowledge about who I am.
Right.
And what's going on in me. And so let me start there. Because, people that were sitting on the fence, they're being attacked.
Right.
How dare you? Silence is
violence. Silence is violence.
Yeah, sure.
It's like, yo, chill, bro. I'm just trying to get a handle on what's happening within my own system, So
absolutely,
it's interesting to observe.
I think sometimes not making a choice is the best choice you can make, until you gather more intelligence, more information.
Yeah.
But what is the most common challenge you encounter with participants of the course? What is the main thing that people who take this course, would you say, is their biggest challenge that's common between the
You mean challenge like within the course, or challenge like coming into the course?
With the person taking it, like what is their life challenge that you notice might be the most common theme?
Man, I think the most common and universal theme is this whole concept, very misunderstood concept of self-esteem. It's such a pop phrase. Like we hear it in passing in high school or school, and we never think about what self-esteem is again. But like self-esteem is the breeding grounds of the cleanliness, the level of hygiene, and the level of quality of every single decision that you make in your life. Because ultimately what it represents is the reputation that you've acquired with yourself through the thousands and thousands of choices that you've made right now. And the quality of that reputation that exists is literally the determining factor of every single decision we make going forward. And the culmination of all those decisions is our destiny, literally. So for us, it's like, let us get you into congruence and coherence with yourself so you can love yourself, trust yourself, and honor yourself, and respect your own boundaries and assert yourself appropriately in such a deep and profound way where it's almost like I don't have any other choice but to be who I am and to action upon those gifts that are within me without having to succumb to the noise of the crowd and to the fears and the judgments that might come up on that process. And I think it's something that many people don't want to acknowledge or admit. No one wants to say, oh, I've got a self-esteem issue. But 99% of people have a self-esteem issue. And the thing is, we just don't really understand what it means to esteem the self.
That's well said. I'm going to run a video in support of what you just said. So stand by, guys.
What does it mean to do the work? First off, you gotta put you first. For generations you've been trained to act against yourself, uplift everybody else, even at the cost of your own health. You've been taught that selfish is a dirty word. You mean to care for my self-interest is something of no worth? It sounds like someone's just trying to take advantage, and often it really does just happen to come down to semantics. We disagree over words we assign different meanings to, like capitalism to me is something beautiful to aspire to. In my mind I hear freedom, trade, value, production. Someone else might just hear greed and corruption. But this is why we gotta dig a little deeper. Really take the time to understand ideas. We're being divided over miscommunication, while puppeteers just happen to pull the strings on our fears. But all it takes is one individual getting clear, and then another to open up their ears. Now, all of a sudden we have people who can hear each other, and we start to clear the debris in between each other. And this is how we discover the truth. We find common ground through examination of proof. So next time you're unsure, don't jump to conclusions. Think beyond your programs and seek answers, not illusions.
Love it,
Oh,
bro.
snap.
That,
I love
that-
it.
Oh, snap.
that was apropos.
Yep. What inspired you that day to make that?
Oh man, bro, inspiration for me, it's like a flash of lightning, man, and it's like I either seize it when it comes or I let it pass. It's not a long built up process. Like I could be doing something completely different, but I got my headphones in, you know, I'm listening to some focus music or some lo-fi beats, and then just all of a sudden something out of nowhere is like, "Ugh," you know, and so I stop everything else I'm doing, and I'm like, am I going to follow through this process to the end? And I said to myself, yes, I am. And then I follow that process through to the end. And like when I start writing, man, I don't know where it's going to go. You know, it's not like an outline. It's not something that I've planned. I hear a beat, you know, I start with the first line, and then the next lines just write themselves. And the commitment that I make to myself is to finish this thing and put it out there.
That's awesome. I like
Yeah.
to say, people, when you get inspiration, hold that thought.
Yeah.
You know, see it to completion, because it won't come around again. And so, yeah, that's fantastic.
Joel, you're such a great writer, man. It's one thing I really respect about Joel is his ability to write, but also write like quickly.
Yeah.
You know, like things just come out and pour out of him, and it's really amazing to witness.
I appreciate that, man. And like, it's interesting because one of the pivotal moments, like I've always considered myself someone who's been literary gifted. English, you know, literacy was always my strongest suit coming up through school. And then in 2020, as you know, I engaged in Michael Tazarian's mystery school, Taroscopes. And this was one of the most pivotal moments of foray into understanding myself on a deeper level, because tarot and astrology and numerology, these are tools of self-knowledge. It's not just divination. These are tools to know yourself. So we all have a respective birth card of the minor arcana from the tarot. And my birth card is the Seven of Cups. And so I was doing this mystery school, then I read what the Seven of Cups means as my primary birth card. And the first definition is literacy gifts. And it's just like, I had this moment where it's like you're born, I'm born this way, you know, like this is my unique bar. This is my unique seat of consciousness. Like my whole life I've known this about myself, but then to get this holy, like you were literally born in this with these unique attributes. And it's just like this solidification of what you're here to do and who you are. And you stake your flag in the ground in just a deeper way, and you become much more immune to, you know, the whims and the pulls of everyone else around you.
That's fantastic. You spoke about self-esteem, and I think that is such a huge issue for a lot of people today.
Yeah.
What are some of your methods that you guys work with your clientele to get them to, you know, uplift that self-esteem?
Well,
Go.
no, I was just going to say, I mean, I think part of it is just education to start. You know, even everything Joel was saying, for people to have seeds planted to really understand what self-esteem really is. And, you know, Joel and I have been inspired by the work of Nathaniel Brandon, who's considered the father of self-esteem. So, you know, we definitely utilize some of his work and his exercises. But, you know, contemplation is a big piece too, you know, asking the right questions to get people to really, you know, turn that gaze inwards and to sit with themselves and to introspect and to be like curious of like, okay, that's interesting. You know, and that's a huge thing that we get in our program with the people who take part in it. There's so many people that have aha moments after aha moments of like not realizing, oh wow, I do have low self-esteem in this situation, or you know, this is a memory that came to me. So I think contemplations and asking questions really guide people towards, you know, their particular inner truth.
Yeah. To me, like the basis and the pillar of self-esteem is coming into a friendly relationship with reality, with the facts of reality. So it's like really getting people to contemplate on where they're avoiding the truth, where they're avoiding the facts on a personal level, on a macro level, within relationships. Like, okay, where do the feelings of guilt, fear, insecurity, anxiety arise in me when I consider doing the thing that I really want to do? And like, who does that come up in relation to around? So it's like, where have I fostered an experience of inauthenticity in my life, and with who and why? And it's tricky and it's difficult. And this work often does require us to have difficult conversations with ourselves and with others. But I think for those who are truly like here for the truth, then there's no other choice, because I want alignment, I want congruence, I want that internal psychological hygiene and freedom more than anything else, because I'm tired, I'm beaten down, I'm worn down by succumbing that, and by blocking that process. And that's how it was for me in my life, man, because I avoided my shadow. I nurtured um, I nurtured an experience of denial. I nurtured an experience of people pleasing, of avoiding the facts of reality in order so I don't have to face my own shadow, you know. Um, and it's a painful process when you get to the point where it's like, this isn't working for me anymore. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to bring balance, bring harmony, bring alignment into my life.
That's very well said. I think one of the things I encounter, even amongst my personal friends, is that same sort of, it's like a non-belief in the self.
Mhm.
Like, I'm afraid to do this because, and I'm just thinking to myself, and I'll often pep up my friends or family or acquaintances. I get a lot of emails from people, and just a few kind words of encouragement can do so much for a human being, you
Yeah.
know. And it's like, I remember that story someone told where when they were a little girl, they would sing all the time. And at some point, the mother said, "Shut up. I never want to hear you sing again,"
Mhm.
because she was having a
Yeah.
bad day. And like 40 years later, this person, deals with this and confronts this and ends up becoming an opera singer or something. So these words of encouragement, I think, are desperately needed. And the program that you guys do is really one of a kind too. So encourage people to check it out. Hereforthetruth.com. You can learn more.
Yeah.
Rise above the herd. Really great stuff you guys are doing. One thing I want to
Can I add one more thing?
certainly.
There really has to be a curiosity of your own inner psychology and to see where some of these patterns came from. Like even in the instance of you're saying, like that you're expressing, what aspect of this person, what part came in to be like, it's not safe.
Mhm.
It's not safe to sing.
Right.
And then you realize like, oh, what, that was a mechanism that came into play to keep you safe in your environment. And maybe at that time it worked, but does it work as you get older and you have dreams and you have desires? I think that's really important for people to consider. And the other thing too is the deep level of self-acceptance that's required, like, and the ability to experience discomfort and pain,
Mhm.
like to be willing to go in there and to go, man, like I betrayed myself, or I was unaware, or I spoke this way to that person, and like, like to be able to feel healthy shame, to be able to feel the pain that can motivate you to change. But if you're not, if you're distracting yourself all the time, if you're addicted to substances and all that stuff, all that truth is just being pushed down underneath, like not a lot of change is going to happen. And so, I don't know, in my life I've always been interested in like, what the fuck's underneath? What am I missing? What's hiding there? What's uncomfortable?
Mhm.
And but again, this is where for some people it's challenging because their nervous systems aren't in a place where they can hold space for this level of discomfort. So again, it's like with our program, we do our best in 8 weeks to tackle this from many different angles and plant seeds for continued growth and contemplation on like the things that were planted during the 8 weeks. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. It's Jung would call it the persona, what you're masking,
Mhm.
or the mask you wear. There's kind of two meanings there, but oftentimes I think, one of the things that people do is, and what I find is, they don't believe they can do what they're already capable of. And so they just need that little kick of encouragement. You know, if anyone's going to do this, you can do it because it's your idea, it's your dream. You know, what's stopping you?
Yeah,
And
man.
oftentimes it's only a mental construct. It's not like a physical. But that's the problem with the mind that the exploration of consciousness really too looks at, is that one's own consciousness can be harder than a steel beam or a steel girder. You know, and it's really, that's, you know, those frames, those mental constructs or cages we build around ourselves are really, you know, some of the strongest things in the world, though they have no existence in the physical world.
Yeah, for sure. And like, this is like, it can go both ways. Like, you can get stuck doing the internal work, and it's like, I need to take action in the real world, you know. And this is where self-esteem is really important as well. And, you know, we really promote this whole concept of imperfect action. Like, no step you take is going to be perfect, but with each step you take, you're going to begin to dismantle the barriers around what's stopping you from, you know, really bringing this out into manifest reality. So, you know, but there's lots of face. This is, you know, you're up against the crowd, right? Which is, you know, a scary entity at times. But we have to be willing to step into that fire, and we can continue to nurture our power each time we do that.
Yeah. And knowing when to say yes, you know, to tune into that self and say, I'm saying yes to this, and it's going to be uncomfortable, you know, and one decision can impact you for the next 15, 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Joel and I didn't know everything about podcasts.
Right.
We had just met. We had a back and forth exchange on Instagram for maybe a week or two, just, you know, just getting to know each other. We hopped on a Zoom and just chatted for a bit. And then a week later, we got on Zoom again and pressed record and just started talking. Like, what does it mean to walk an authentic path? A couple young bucks back then, you know, we were just having this conversation and sharing about our journeys, and then we did it again. And then maybe we should have some guests. I think that's what we do, you know, and then and then everything evolved, and the creative process and our logos and our visuals and who we were as podcasters, and
Yeah.
the confidence that we gained just by doing each podcast.
Yeah. And also, like, this is where like self-efficacy is really important. Like, my ability to know that if there's something I don't know, that I can learn what I need to know in order to keep taking those steps, you know? So do I have the self-efficacy and the self-esteem to go ask the questions, to go have a conversation? We jumped on a Zoom with David Whitehead. We barely knew him. And we're like, bro, what equipment do we need? You know, like,
Right.
but if someone goes and watches episode 1 of Here for the Truth, it looks like it was recorded in 1996, you know?
It really does.
But this is the process. It's imperfect, and we get so caught up in this thing like, oh, art has to be perfect before we put it out there, before we do anything. But you're never going to sharpen that sword if you just hold on to it, you know, and never allow yourself to get feedback from the environment, you know, and nurture your own creative process through action.
Yep. That's well said. So I want to move to the subject of money, and I have to share a personal experience real quick, and I want to get your guys' take, because this is one of the things I really value about you as well, Joel, is you have this really kick-ass, in my opinion, understanding of money and its purpose. But for me, myself, it was only just a few years ago that I escaped what I would call poverty consciousness.
Yep.
And it was plaguing me, you know, literally for years and years of my life. Number one, because I didn't understand that I even had it. Number two, that I felt like money was something that was, you know, and this, I'd say maybe 10 years ago, I started to question it. You know, what is the purpose of it? Do I really need to view it as something that's evil? And then I reconciled that with the use of it. And eventually I made a saying to myself, don't let money be my focus. Let it be the side effect of right action.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're getting in line with your soul's purpose, with your true, when you have a deep sense of purposefulness in the world, like you're living a life, whether you have money or not, when you're taking that step to fulfill what I would call your divinity, your purpose, in other words, money will be the side effect of that right action. But I really value your take on money. And eventually, when I escaped the poverty consciousness, I paid off my truck. We just paid off our house. We bought an $8,000 furnace with cash. You know, these are things that 4 or 5 years ago, I would have been indebted and maxed out the credit cards.
Mm-hmm.
I have zero credit card debt. But it took a lot of hard work and a kind of mindset to tell myself, I am a valuable person, and money doesn't define me. The use of it does, but also just this poverty consciousness. You want to talk about that and maybe give some advice as to how to escape that, how to get out of that mindset.
Yeah, sure, man. And I've had a very long and tumultuous relationship with poverty consciousness and scarcity and self-worth myself. And to be honest, it only feels like the last few years which I've really begun to dissolve those barriers in a big way too. And shout out to Ayn Rand. I think she is absolutely huge in this regard, because what Rand teaches you is that unless you value your own life, how can you have any other values? And if you don't value money, how can you value your life, right? Money, like the value you place on a dollar, ultimately is the value you place on your existence, because whether people like it or not, this is the means of our survival, right? Back in the day, the means of our survival, sure, was our ability to hunt, to forage, to trade. Right now, whether people like it or not, whatever labels, attachments they want to place on money, this is the means of your survival. So, I think that people need to shift from being like, oh, I'm scared about valuing dollar and making money such a high value on my priority list, and shift it into, do I value my life? And if the answer is yes, then how can you not value money?
It's well said. Yerasimos, you want to add anything?
No, I think the only thing I do is just around the programming around money being evil. That's I think, again, there's these subtle programs that infiltrate people's minds, whether it's through religion, whether it's through the media, that impact their sense of self and how they move through the world. So again, finding where these little programs have come in and to create some separation, to consider alternatives, is super, super important. Money's been an interesting thing for me in my life. Like I don't think I've had an antagonistic relationship to it. I think early on I had some views around, like, because my dad worked all the time, he just worked nonstop, that it was like, well, making money means that, like, you can't do the things that you want to do, other things, you're just stuck to one thing. But I've distanced myself from that, and yeah, I've kind of just had a belief, when I need money, it comes to me, and I don't really have an antagonistic relationship to it. And I like money. It provides a certain level of freedom to do the things that you want to do. I've been blessed in certain situations to have it, and yeah, it's like, I agree with what Joel said. It's important in our world today. Like, who are you? Are you creative? Can you produce something? Can you exchange what you produce for value? Whether it's trading, like, hey, listen, I built this desk. Can you give me 7 fish? Cool. Let's do a trade, regardless, there's some value being exchanged for value. And that's ultimately what capitalism is in its purest sense. And I just think that word has been co-opted to be this evil thing, like, oh my God, like, you're greedy and horrible, and you're a capitalist. Yes, are there things that are dark in our world around money and manipulation and finance? Sure. But again, like, bring it back to you and who you are, and self-esteem, and moving forward in the world, and believing truly that I have something to offer.
Yeah.
And to knowing your value and going, hey, listen, this is what I believe this is worth. And then hopefully the market, someone will come back and go like, oh yeah, cool, I'll pay that. Or they won't. And then you might have to make some adjustments.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, my ability to make money is directly tied to my ability to think and produce rationally and creatively, and that's a challenge that I absolutely love, and when we think about those who the most innovative, the most esteemed producers, like ultimately, without money being a motivational force, like lots of these incredible technologies and innovations and civilizations that we live in now would not be possible. So ultimately, it's a force which is asking you to grow, which is asking you to evolve and expand as a rational, creative, thinking human being. And so when we begin to tarnish this whole concept of money, and we add disdain and we throw dirt on it, it's like, really what you're throwing dirt on is your own ability to create, and that creative life force that exists within you. And we really need to break down these barriers that, like, oh, I'm not producing for money. Hell no. I am creating for money. I am producing for money. Money is what allows me to, it was what fuels this process. It's what allows us to create on a bigger scale. Like why do we want to be stuck doing the same thing all the time, not really evolve our process, and without being able to receive value from what we're doing, I'm then stifling our own creative process.
Yeah. I think also this relates, I mean, I always like to bring it back to psychology to some degree, is
Mhm.
that there are a lot of people, when you consider the crabs in the bucket, analogy, that like they like to be more successful would mean like, oh, I might lose my friends, I might be disloyal to my family. There's a lot of people they grow up and they don't want to. There's some unconscious thing like I can't rise above what my parents did, because it might mean that I'm going to be disloyal to them. So there's a lot of interesting things that are playing in people's minds around money that, again, people need to create some more awareness around.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, the concept of money isn't just this paper note. The concept of money is the value that you receive in order to enhance the quality of your life in whatever way or whatever method that is, which changes over time. So like, just because, yeah, the Federal Reserve prints money out of thin air and there's lots of dirty money going around backed by absolutely nothing, like, that's different from the true concept of what money actually represents. It is it's what you trade for your life force in order to enhance the quality of
Right.
your life. And obviously, man, we live in this time of incredible ideological subversion. These neo-gnostic communist ideologies have been flying around, infecting everyone's minds to such a degree. So really developing an experience of objectivity, around many of these ideologies too. Like, what is capitalism? What is true capitalism? Can really help us in this process.
Yeah, and even from a Hollywood standpoint, you see all the movies like the people who are like super wealthy are the villains usually. And so again, it doesn't mean that all super wealthy people are amazing human beings, but it's just part of the programming that gets
Yeah,
played on
that's right.
people's
We've
psyches.
we've been so heavily conditioned with this idea that altruism is some kind of barometer of morality.
Mm.
And that's absolutely ridiculous notion. It's the complete opposite, right? The altruist is saying, here, have me, world. I mean nothing. It's
Right.
sacrificing the self on the altar of collectivism, on the altar of everything else. So there's lots of deconditioning that takes place. And this is why money is the second last module in our course. And the module's called Money, the Root of All Good. Just to trigger
Well
people
said.
into
Yeah.
what that is. But before we even get to money, there's a whole deconditioning process that needs to take place, because you can't really just hit people with this straight up.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you have these, like you said, these examples of altruism, St. Francis, vow of poverty,
Yep.
sell all your possessions, give it to the church, and then you just wander, in abject poverty and ruins. But the way I look at money too, from a Russell perspective, is it's a form of balanced interchange.
Mm-hmm.
It's rhythm and balance and interchange. What Doc would call rhythmic balanced interchange. I call it RBI for short. And
Yeah.
so you're trading something for something else, but is it equal to what you've traded? And that's, a lot of people look at, like you said, money as a form of evil, that really rich people misuse it. And again, it's more or less symbolic of an interchange. It's a tool of commerce.
Yep.
I give this to you, you give this to me. One of my visions for money, actually, the way that we could eventually get rid of it, and it might take 1,000 years, but really what we're trading, just bear with me here. If we can just start printing our own money with our own faces on it, 1, 5, 10, 20s, 50s, 100s, right? You can print as much money as you want. You could have warehouses full of $100 bills with your face on it. But if you're a Bill Gates or the like, or a Klaus Schwab or someone villainous like that, you could have all this money, but if your character sucks, nobody will want to give their money to you. So there won't be an interchange. So basically what we would move from is printed currency to where we're actually realizing that the person with the best character will have the most money at the end of the day.
Mm.
And so people with good character will eventually end up with warehouses full of money, because of their character. That's what you're actually selling. And eventually, when we realize that character is the real currency, that's when we won't need money anymore.
But what if someone has good character but can't produce shit?
Ooh, that's a tough question. See, I haven't been thrown that back yet, but yeah, that's, I mean, well, would it be good character? If let's say, what does a man do for another man in terms of an interchange? Would get good character accept a cow and then not give anything in return for it?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is someone can be an upstanding, moral person of high quality character that loves, nurtures themselves, their family, but ultimately doesn't have the creative faculties to produce something that's really going to be of value to another human being to exchange. You know, like what can I do with your character? Like I can't take it and put food in the fridge.
True. I'm thinking 1,000 years into the future.
Yeah.
Though, bro. So, you know, maybe we'll get there. Maybe we
Dude,
won't.
if people haven't gone down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, I do highly recommend it. You know, I know a lot of truthers have aversions to crypto. I'm not talking about crypto at all. I'm talking about Bitcoin specifically. For me, my research, I truly believe this is the hardest money that's ever existed. It has a locked scarcity. You know, no more of it can be printed. 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin, and it's stored away from being diluted from the forces that exist outside. So I think
that's really cool, because I wanted to ask you about that too.
Yeah, man, I think Bitcoin holds a lot of answers, but this is something that a concept that you need to understand and really research for yourself. And the mind on this that I recommend is a Lebanese economics professor. His name is Stilianessis. He's written 3 books: The Principles of Economics, The Bitcoin Standard, and the Fiat Standard. And for someone who's interested in going down this pathway, because I think it's really, really important because it solves a lot of problems, then I really recommend diving into that.
Very cool. So speaking more on capitalism, I know we've heard it discussed. I know Michael on slaves discussed it, even Ayn Rand perhaps, but have we really ever had a true capitalist system?
I don't think so.
No, because true capitalism is a complete separation of state and economics. True capitalism is laissez-faire capitalism, and that's never really existed. Maybe it's existed to a degree in the early stages of the founding of America, but has it ever existed in a pure sense? No, definitely not. But this is what I say to people: just because society and culture hasn't adopted laissez-faire capitalism, it doesn't mean that you can't adopt it in your own life, in your own personal network, with your own personal relationships. And I think people can really start there, and that's something that they can do. You know, they can exit the game and they can adopt these ideals in their own life and how they lead.
How would you see this changing things if we did have a true free market capitalistic society worldwide?
Oh, man, who knows what would be possible for civilization if there wasn't, you know, a vampiristic force literally like consuming half of what is produced just to feed its own inverted agendas. Like, who knows what kind of incredible society if that stranglehold, you know, that octopus which is on man's mind was removed for good, and man could just produce and trade freely, you know, without that shadow. Holy shit, bro. Like that's when you talk about real solutions, that is the real solutions of freedom, is that if we somehow get to the point of separating state and economics.
That's well said. I'm going to run another video because it seems fitting. This one's called, again, another one by Joel Rafidi, Paradigm Shifts. So we'll be back shortly. If you guys need to take a quick break, this would be a good time to do it. See you on the other side.
It's the paradigm shifter, radical change in everything that you think. You see, they want you asleep, and so you better not blink. My middle eye wings connect the links. It's the paradigm shift. Be aware, my bros, what you expose to your soul. Not all is as it seems, not all that shines is gold. It's the paradigm shift. Welcome to the paradigm shift. I can dance around the answers like doctors and cancers. In exchange for your help or my profit, I'll enhance it. I'll fill my pocket when I sell you a stick, and you just keep on getting sick, almost exactly like I planned it. Nah man, I'm just politicking. I'm a human being, I'm not a Clinton. I plan on hanging around like Jeffrey in his sentence. So I question my thoughts, I get quiet and repent them, you see. That's called self-awareness. If I sense something wrong, I'll examine it with fairness. I'll use discernment with every choice that I make. I won't follow the herd, I'm not a sheep nor a snake. I'm not asleep nor awake, but I'll still make mistakes. I'll adjust and I'll change, I'll move and rearrange, I'll learn and I'll exchange. For we are sentient beings, and that's just how we're made. It's the paradigm shifter, radical change in everything that you think. You see, they want you asleep, and so you better not blink. My middle eye winks connect the links. It's the paradigm shift. Be aware, my bros, what you expose to your soul. Not all is as it seems, not all that shines is gold. It's the paradigm shift. Welcome to the paradigm shift. Up is down and down is up. Inverted ideology designed to disrupt, to confuse and interrupt. Set in place by the corrupt, by those who lurk in shadows and distract with cover-ups.
How deep you wanna
The ones who cling to power, so thirsty to devour, to consume into the flower, on the rancid and the sour. Rinse so planted on your brows, a disenchanted chance encounter. Kids go missing every hour, 5G weapon on your router. Something rotten in the system, common in the victim. Spirituality, wisdom, a moral existence. Lisa Nipsey Sebi, Prince of Machiavelli. Evidence be getting heavy, evidence be getting buried. There's a war on you that you can transmute. So choose what you consume and take time to reboot. We all come from mother's womb, so never do confuse. Human being for costume, injected for immune. It's the paradigm shifter, radical change in everything that you think. You see, they want you asleep, and so you better not blink. My middle eye winks connect the links. It's the paradigm shift. Be aware, my bros, what you expose to your soul. Not all is as it seems, not all that shines is gold. It's the paradigm shift. Welcome to the paradigm shift.
I just wanna know how deep you wanna go.
Like Alice down a hole, or a palace full of stolen gold. Like no weapons in Iraq, or MK Ultra after dark.
I just wanna know how deep you wanna go.
Like a pipeline in Libya, Mockingbird criteria, Bohemian Grove and population control.
I just wanna know how deep you wanna go.
Palestine, Palestine.
Love it, bro. It's good stuff, man.
Thanks, man.
So we were back and forth a little bit. You were writing on some music, and I threw you a chorus line. I would love to get in the studio with you one day. And
Yeah, bro. Oh man, that would be a dream come true for sure.
Yes.
And like, actually, those two songs that we're working on, they're coming to the forefront of my consciousness a bit more now. So I'm ready to make some traction in that regard for sure, man. I think they're fire, bro. We've got to get that shit out there. Yeah.
There you go. Well, I want to move a little bit now into. Let's real quick though. Let me just throw this question at you guys. If you're on an island and you only had one book,
Eesh.
only one book for the rest of your life, what would that book be?
Easy for me.
Oh yeah, that's probably the same one. I don't know. That's the first one that came to my head. But Joel, you can go.
Yeah, I think it would definitely be Atlas Shrugged.
Nice.
That would inspire me to keep going. That would inspire me to build the raft. That would
Yeah.
inspire me to go explore new horizons and
There you go.
find my way.
I'd have to say that one too, only because it's the most recent book that has had a huge impact on me, and it's so large, and so of course there's a lot of days that you're going to spend on an island, and so it's not like I just finished this one book. It's 150 pages, it's like whatever 1,300 pages, and so I can just keep reading it and reading and reading it and reading it, and there's so many foundational lessons, empowering lessons on being an individual that are in there that, like Joel said, who knows, who knows what I would create on the isolated island.
It's awesome. I really haven't got into Rand enough to even say more than, let's just say, Rush. I listened to Rush for years and years. Neil Peart was heavily influenced by Ayn Rand and wrote in a lot of the lyrics of Rush. you know, after naming songs like Anthem and things like this. Really, really cool stuff. So I would say that my introduction to Ayn Rand was in the 80s rock that I listened to. And I used to play
Wow, I had no idea. I'm really excited to look
Oh,
into Rush
dude,
now.
if you haven't heard the early Rush, it is so obvious, you know,
Wow,
that his Randian influence was just massive, and it inspired
awesome.
3 or 4 albums worth of lyrics throughout his lifetime. So really great stuff. So yeah, let's
She's great.
go ahead.
What would your book be?
Oh, my book? Ooh. I'd have to say The Secret of Light.
Yeah, you're gonna say that.
Yeah. I still have to read it, man.
Yeah.
It's on my shelf.
No,
On that long list of books that are waiting for me.
no book's ever blasted me harder than that one, you know, and I've never exclaimed after finishing a book that I never need to read another one as long as I live. That's what Lori, she goes, how was it? I said, that good. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess there's just some really great, we have one of the most incredible times of being alive in terms of the amount of information, the West, the ideals of the West, wisdom, the beauty that's inherent in all these great authors. I mean, we have all the tools we could ever want, you know, to move ourselves forward. So I was going to ask you about your influences author-wise, but I know Rand being one, Brandon, and you guys have any other major influences that
Michael
Michael's
for sure.
work for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe for all of us, you know, he definitely had an impact. Deep respect for him.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think. God, you know, I was really influenced by the works of Doctors Hal and Sidra Stone. They're psychologists. Well, Hal died at 93 years old in 2020, but they were like my first deep dive or foray into consciousness. You know, as an actor, my acting teacher was heavily influenced by their work. It was a form of parts work. They called it voice dialogue, the psychology of the selves and the aware ego process. And it just kind of highlighted that, you know, we contain multitudes, you know, we have many different parts to us. And, you know, if we over identify with certain parts, we lose the wisdom that's potential in the opposite. So it obviously exists within the duality, but I think it's important to understand like the architecture of our psyche from that standpoint. And so that really influenced me, you know, in my early to mid 20s, just in terms of understanding like what's happening inside of me. So yeah, some of their work and their book.
Yeah.
I think this would be a good time. I'm gonna just do something here. So bear with me. You mentioned acting.
I don't know.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, before
yeah.
you do this, I just wanted to mention, like I've said this before, like my Mount Rushmore of influences are Rand, Brandon, Michael, and Yerasimos. Like for real, because what Yerasimos has exposed me to through this relationship, I've had more psycho-emotional growth than anything else.
That's awesome.
The nervous system piece, the human design piece, you know, the somatic piece. Like fuck, man. Like this guy, low-key, is the man. I'm telling you.
We're going to get into that on the other side for sure. I want to ask you some questions on the human design.
This shit gets me, man. Thank you. Dude.
Bro, it's the truth, man. We're both crying because it's the fucking truth.
Well, that, guys, maybe the first time you've ever cried on a podcast. So way to go. That's true inspiration and true brotherhood, man. You can't beat that. But if you ain't crying,
it means a lot. It means a lot because I have such respect for Joel, you know, and
that's
awesome. And you know, I just kind of go about and do my thing, do my life, you know, and it's just nice to be mirrored back in that way. And yeah, thank you, man.
There's a magic there. So guys, you got to check out hereforthetruth.com. And this is a clip of Yerasimos, his acting reel, just a snippet, okay?
A long time ago.
Right.
Όχι φίλε μου, δεν δουλεύει έτσι. Σε αυτή τη ζωή, αν παίζεις με φωτιά θα καείς. Και στην Ελλάδα, αν αρέσεις να παίζεις με τις γυναίκες μας, πρέπει να είσαι έτοιμος να φας το σουβλάκι. Καλώς ήρθες στην Ελλάδα, Δημήτρη.
You wanna play rough? Okay. Say hello to my little friend! You want to play rough? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Do you like that?
You know, this is seriously fucked up. You know, this would be really funny if you're joking, but you're not joking.
Dude, I
Oh
didn't
my
know you were in
God.
that movie.
I love
bro.
how you threw Al Pacino there.
I
What?
didn't know you were in that movie.
Yeah, dude. You know, that was one of my most
Fucking awesome,
iconic
bro.
roles. It was one of my most iconic roles. You know, actually, one of my favorite.
I did not
scenes
expect
did-
that.
What?
I did not expect that.
No, I didn't. There was a moment where I was like, "Did something happen to his YouTube?" And then, of course, I figured why you were putting in, but it's
Man,
pretty funny.
I was like, I don't want to embarrass him because I know he's like, that's past life stuff. I didn't want to run the whole 3 minutes, so I'm like, how can I amp it up a little bit? But
No. It's listen. It's not even like I'm embarrassed because I love that period of my life. I mean, first of all, it's funny that like most people, my Greek name is Yerasimos, but my Americanized name is Jerry because Yerasimos is Gerasimos. So a lot of Yerasimoses and Gerasimoses. I was named after the patron saint of the island of Kefalonia, where my father was born and raised on. So Yerasimos is Gerasimos, Americanized, and Jerry for short. And so yeah. Anyways, and then I shortened my last name because this was like however many years ago, and it's like, you know, I didn't want to sound too ethnic. Now, if you're ethnic, it's like better for you. But back then, it was like, hey, listen, let me try to simplify it.
right.
But yeah, I mean, a great period of my life, and really laid the foundation for so much of everything to follow. Like, I don't think I'd be who I was if I didn't have that education, and the exploration of consciousness.
Well,
You know,
that
and that's
acting reel,
what it was.
that acting reel's outstanding. I thought it was phenomenal, and you would have made a much better in any role Ben Affleck did. You would have made it thousands of times better.
Thank
You
you,
know,
thank you, man.
honestly. And I've delved in acting myself. You guys can check out woodgetter.com if you really want to bore yourselves.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell me a little more about the acting, because I think you speak of the psychology and the roles when you assume these roles. And, you know, obviously it really, you know, just from my own experience, even in these, you know, slapstick little things I've done, there's a certain sense of when you take on a role that, you know, from an archetypal even level, that you're assuming a character. What's that like? And you obviously pursued it as a profession for a while, and you know, tell us about what it was like to be an actor. Did you do any roles in movies, or was it commercials, or what? A little more about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, first off, let's just start with the origins. You know, I mean, we're all creators here to a certain degree, and you know, when I was younger, like I was blown away how stories and movies, like, okay, we could talk shit about Hollywood and dark sorcery, magic, and all that, but storytelling is at our core, you know, and it's impacted us in so many ways. And so, growing up, like I was amazed as like a child or as a teenager, I could watch these movies and they can just like help bring out all these different emotions within me, you know, and trigger me to experience these different parts of me, to weep, you know, to feel angry, to just experience life through the eyes of another, you know, and to understand like, oh wow, like this is an interesting story, like that's, you know, way beyond my day-to-day life. And so I love that. And I had a dream, like I always wanted to act because of that. I wanted to give people that feeling. And so that's how I first got into it. And there's probably some shallow elements too. Like I wanted to, you know, be famous and make a lot of money and get women, you know, that was probably it, especially early on. But I loved the exploration of consciousness. My first main mentor like had psychologists on his staff. And it was really about, hey, listen, you come to an acting class or a creative profession with your, you know, like your established way of being, your personality set in a certain way, your conditioned emotions and behaviors. Cool. Let's honor that process. You know, we don't want to repress and say, oh, that was bad. Let's honor the way maybe certain protective parts of us came in our life. And then let's see what's on the other side so we can integrate it. Because an actor, any actor is going to read a script. And if they don't have access to that part of them, they're not going to really empathize with that character or see the character from that point of view. So I think the greatest actors have this ability, very often natural and learned, to tap into the multitude within them and really see life from this point of view. So like, yes, you're playing a character, but a lot of the times you're using yourself in the service of telling stories, you know? So I never looked at it as like, oh, this isn't me, but it was more, I was using me as a vessel to embody these characters. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you
And so I missed it. Like I love that element of it. I love the exploration. I love the fun. There were just elements of like the business and the day to day that didn't align with me, and I had all these other passions and gifts that I wanted to do. And things got clear for me about 9 years ago that it was time to kind of like let that go for a bit and continue on my path. I never say never. There's still that part of me that wants to be in front of the camera again, but it would depend on how it is. I'm not driving around LA all day to like audition and for like a line like, "Hey, put down the gun," and then, "Okay, thanks, have a good day." Like I just don't care. Like, you know, even commercials. Like I've done one commercial. You know, I've done a lot of independent short projects. I've done theater. Again, this is like from maybe 2005 to 2010, 11. You know, but I probably spent 9, 10 years, you know, training. And I was, again, education is something I love. So I was really into acting training, like what it takes, what are the elements of it, and fascinated by it. But ultimately that led me towards understanding that I think what I really, really loved about it was what I got out of it. You know, how I became more whole or more integrated, and how that impacted my life and my relationships. So anyways,
that's really cool.
thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that. It was yeah.
I didn't.
It's funny.
Sorry if I
Back on
butchered
that.
the clip, but you know, the Al Pacino.
No, you didn't butcher at all. You shared a couple good parts, and then of course my iconic role in Scarface. I'm happy that everyone knows that was me.
Well, between the
Yeah.
two of you, you got me all inspired. So I'm thinking a movie called Truth Seeker. We write the
Well-
we can write the music for it. We got the actors. We got everybody. Me and David Whitehead can do the fight scenes. I mean, it'll be bad to the motherfucking bone if we ever made a movie.
Well, Matt, Yerasimos and I are actually both playing characters right now. We've been in character since 2021, since we've met.
Yeah.
We actually both came out of Hollywood and we're controlled opposition trying to subvert the truth movement.
So
My
am I,
real name
bro,
is Phil.
from
My real name is
40
Phil.
acres in the middle of nowhere, Missouri. Yep. We'll see you at the Masonic Lodge later, guys.
Yeah, definitely, man. I can't wait.
Right on. Oh, that's great stuff. But yeah, there's guys. I hope you're enjoying this. I do want to move into the importance of body as a subject, and I will share another thing with you guys in the audience as well. That like I had talked about money and being in this kind of a poverty consciousness. Just a number of years ago, 2017, right prior to joining the fire department as a volunteer, I was getting up in the back of the truck to get something out of the bed, and I realized I could hardly breathe. And I self-diagnosed myself with the very early onset of congenital heart failure. It's what you would say, by the symptoms, and I was very close to a man in his late 70s who was diagnosed with it, and just talked about how his energy was gone and how everything was. So I was one of these people that thought the mind was everything. It's very important to just focus on my mind and do my mind things and my creation things with my mind, but never really, gave the body much of a second thought until this episode of getting up in the back of the truck. So I decided to join the gym, and I've been going to the gym ever since. I did take a 2-year hiatus during the COVID thing, just because I didn't like the rules and all that stuff. So I was working out at the house instead. I can do 250 push-ups in a day, 5 sets of 50. I'm best shape of my life. I got lots of testosterone, which is a huge deal. I think for a lot of men. I'm 52. And when you get into your 50s, obviously they'll say it's harder to build muscle, things like this, but doesn't mean you shouldn't try, or at least have some sort of a regimen. But noticing the body is a huge thing in especially like new age circles, because they tend to forget this. that you have a body, that it's a purposeful thing. It's a human biological incredible creation that allows your mind to move around in this realm and to become the creator that you're, you know, holding within and whatnot. It's the human spacesuit, as they say. So why don't you guys, we can start with Yerasimos, and this includes human design, somatics, you know, health. I know this is a big issue for you guys, and I think it's really important for people to understand, you know, the importance of the body.
I mean, this is a big part of my life and the work that I've done for several years. I think the challenge with a lot of new age communities or non-dualists is they just disregard it, you know, and it's like, cool, I can get behind, like, you know, there's this ocean of consciousness and we're limitless beings. But why do we have to then say there's like, forget that thing called the body that we literally experience the world with and experience the world through. And if some shit goes down, like our nervous system is going to be impacted by it. Like we can't escape it, you know? And I'm sorry, I personally don't think, and I could be wrong, that you're just going to think your way out of dealing with the fact that you've experienced extreme trauma in your life that has impacted you physiologically. You know, your first language in the womb with your mother is sensation. You know, so if you're just going to completely disregard what's happening on a sensation level in your body, you're missing a huge piece of the puzzle. And so, you know, my initial work was very, you know, more spiritual, mental based, psychological based, and I gained a lot of value from that. But when I first moved to LA, about 10 years ago, I met a mentor of mine who was an ex-Navy SEAL and trained in traditional Chinese medicine and different bodywork modalities. And I went through this intense process, this transformational process of doing pretty hardcore bodywork. That's how I met my wife too. And it changed me on a fundamental level. It changed me. I felt like I was Neo in the Matrix. You know, I felt like, you know, like the bullets of life that come at you, you know, which are different stimuli and conversations and things said to you. Like I was much more able to go and navigate that and not get sucked in and not get so reactive, because I had done work on this foundational material, nervous system, electrical level to support me in my life. And that also impacted my mind. So I think there's different access points that you can go in that can support you. So we get so sucked into this either or. It's just the mind, or it's, you know, it's just the body, or when it's like, well, why can't, first of all, I don't think there's a separation personally. Like we're a mind body to a certain degree. And I just think it's important for people to bring their attention to that. And there's different amazing tools and modalities to work on. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that. And then human design also is more of in a lot of ways, it's a somatic based system. You know, even your decision making process in human design is much more somatic. It's more intuitive, as opposed to just like, well, I've figured out some pros and cons and I've analyzed things and now I'm going to come to a decision. Now, that doesn't mean that that's not important to do, but I think getting in touch with this different level of wisdom deep within the cells, the bones, the blood of your body, you know, can highly benefit an individual.
Joel, you want to add on anything?
Well, the only thing I'd like to add, if you don't mind, I was reading an article, a Substack by my friend Simon Esler, who's also a previous podcast guest of ours, and will be coming back on briefly. Can I just read the start of this? Because I think it's so relevant. He says, empiricism is the theory that all knowledge is derived from sense experience. Put differently, the body's direct experience with the world is our most valuable relationship with truth. Compared to the mind, which can arguably be led astray more easily when it comes to truth seeking, the body gives us an incredible panoply of sensory inputs, combines them, and then adds human intuition, creativity, and mental analysis on top of this. In the face of empiricism, one of the major issues we face today is the dilemma of disembodiment. So much of what we're faced with today removes the body's truth-seeking capacity from the equation by feeding us world events through a screen. And I mean, well, if you're here for the truth, you know, you can't not include the body in that process, because I think so many people, as Simon says, are becoming more disembodied through this world events constantly coming to us at a pace which has never been before experienced in human history, through a screen. And I think those who really understand their body, have nurtured a relationship with it, have taken the time to regulate their nervous systems, are going to be much more inclined to grasping whatever the truth is than those who have disregarded it altogether.
Yeah, and also too, that was a great passage, man. Thank you for
Indeed.
that. Is that even from a human design standpoint, the decision making process is more intuitive, and there are different elements of human design based on centers. So you have 9 centers, and some are defined, some are undefined. So defined centers are something that's more consistent and reliable to you. You can transmit energy, you can condition other people, and where you're open is where you can be conditioning. So a lot of this conditioning through these open centers, well, not just open centers, but let's just say primarily open centers, can distort our mental thinking. So it's like, it's not just enough to be like, all right, trust your mind. Like, yes, of course we need to build rationality and all that, but there are things happening on a somatic level that is impacting people's thinking. So example, when you think of the world we live in and we have these major events that occurred, and I've said this recently, 50% of the population has emotional definition, which is they're existing on an emotional wave. Now, the way that wave looks is different. Now, the other half, they don't have that center defined, so they can be conditioned by others' emotional waves and amplify it. So if you have a lot of unconscious people who don't know themselves, or maybe haven't done the work to regulate their nervous system and build more discernment, when these major events happen, you have people that are so triggered on their wave and they're reacting from that. They're not giving themselves time for emotion to get to emotional clarity, to decide, to act, to say something. And then you have the rest of the population that is taking in this deep conditioning and amplifying it. So it's this like wild, just like cauldron of just emotional reactivity that's occurring without consciousness. And that's just talking about one center. This isn't even talking about the other ones and how people can be conditioned to operate from that place. So again, the body's important.
How would you say these 9 centers in relation to like the nerve ganglion that describe the chakra system? Is it similar to
So
that?
from a human design standpoint, it's like a 9-centered chakra system. So instead of like the more conventional 7 that we know,
Mhm.
so you have the head, which is where like inspiration comes from. You have the mind, which is what we think of the mind. It's where we categorize things, we analyze, we we think, we come up with concepts. Then there's the throat. The throat is like manifesting, but not in like the spiritual sense, but more about exteriorizing and bringing things in and speaking, doing. Then something that I think is unique to human design is the self center, the identity center.
Mhm.
This is where our love, direction, and identity comes from. We have the ego center, or the heart center, which is where our will comes from and our sense of value comes from. Then the emotional center, or the solar plexus, it's called in human design, is what I was just talking about. That relates to the nervous system, our emotions, our moods. The sacral center is the major motor and life force energy that comes, and where our vitality comes from. And only generators and manifesting generators have that defined in their charts. Then there's the spleen center that we share with animals. It's very instinctual, intuitive. It's where our fight flight responses come. And then we have our root center, and that's where our drive comes from, and where we harness like our adrenalized energy. So that's just it in a quick little summary. And again, it's a different interplay. Human design is another system of self-knowledge, and a person can look at it and like, I'm not a dogmatist. I'm not like this one thing is the thing that's going to just have all the truth of anything. But it's a system that has stood, the test of time for at least the last, 30, 40 years. So it's been around, and people have gotten a lot of benefit from it. And so I think there's tools within human design, especially strategy and authority, which separates it from other modalities, because there's something tangible and practical that you can hold on to in terms of how you respond to life or how you interact with your environment, and then how you also make decisions. Because people have different authorities. There's different decision-making processes based on your individual chart. So to get this knowledge and then to start the experimentation process is something that I think is beneficial. Take what works, leave the rest. And then not everyone has to know their human design, but I think it's a valuable tool, especially in the world we are in today.
Yeah, and if you share the story of how it came into existence, it's actually quite Rustelian, Yerasimos, if you want to let him know.
Yeah. So, this guy, Alan Robert Krakauer, he was like an advertising executive in like Canada, I believe. And he left, kind of like went on a walkabout, left his life in like the 70s and found himself in Ibiza, I think late 70s, early 80s. And then he's the person that ultimately received this information. And as the story goes, January 3rd, 1987, on the island of Ibiza, he was coming home one night and he noticed that his front door was open and the light was on. And so he went into his home, his little house that he was living in on like the other side of the island, and like the door shut behind him, and immediately this voice came to him. And for 8 days and 8 nights, this voice just delivered him the foundations of human design.
Wow.
And he was just sitting there for 8 days, 8 nights, just like writing everything down. And he started teaching people the knowledge. And then I think after a year, it was like, this responsibility is too much. And he just kind of like told everyone to burn everything, as the story goes. And like went off, but then came back and realized not everyone burnt the knowledge, and kind of took the knowledge and he evolved it over the years until his death. And I think he died in 2011. So pretty fascinating story, because there is that part of me that goes, this is too trippy, you know, like this knowledge came from that. But I also am open-minded enough to go, this is pretty amazing. And I don't know why these things happen.
Inspiration strikes in mysterious ways, man.
It sure does.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's how many incredible things have come out of that experience. You know, I just looked at a particular guy today on Twitter X, and it was a theologian and a writer from the 12th century or 13th century, and no, 12th century, and Ramon Lull, interesting guy, but same thing. He had an experience, realized that his calling was something higher, and he wrote this entire work, which he called Art, about a numeric system or a alphabet system, and his central diagrams looked exactly like a Walter Russell drawing of his crystallization chart in the universal one. I was just like, whoa, you know. So it's what comes out of these divine experiences should never be dismissed. I mean, it's that is the new knowledge that we all have access to, and great stuff, man. I want to ask you guys now concerning love and work. How do you balance the family dynamic amidst the chaos of everyday life?
Joel?
It's a work in progress, bro. It's a work in progress. It's something that I navigate every day. I'd like to think I get better at it. I'm blessed, I guess, to be able to work from home and to have my office in my house. And you know, my kids, our intention is to homeschool them as well. I think, you know, there's an understanding, you know, in my family, like we mentioned before in our discussion around money, that, you know, I need to create and provide value to others in order for us to receive value, in order to fulfill and achieve the highest values that we have collectively as a family. I think that understanding is very helpful between my wife and I. And I think I've gotten better over the years at like not bringing my triggers or, you know, in the past, any kind of, I guess, scarcity emotional things that would come up with me into my family life. I think I've become more self-contained in that way, for sure. You know, there's 3 women in my house now. I've got 2 daughters and I got my wife.
Right.
So just learning to be a better custodian and a caretaker of their emotions, and of their experience as well, and just really understanding my role, I guess, as the masculine force primarily in this house, so to be that anchor, and to provide stability and to provide security, like, and that's what I'm here for. But like, this isn't like a fixed thing. Like, this is a work in process. There's the challenges that we navigate every single day in that regard. But through those challenges, we always evolve, like as a unit and as a partnership between my wife and I too. Yeah, man, that's my opening statement, I guess.
One on the way, right?
Yeah, bro, another one on the way. Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
I just want to add to just yesterday, I think I forwarded Joel a study that some experts had that that fathers who have daughters live longer. So we may have Joel on this planet for a lot longer than he would have been, according to some expert study.
According to this study, each daughter brings 74 weeks of longevity
Oh, wow.
to the top end of one's life. Yeah.
There you go, dude.
Very cool.
Yeah.
How about you, Joel? What's between love and work, balancing the family dynamic amidst the chaos of everyday life?
Well, listen, I don't have children, so I will be the first to acknowledge that life is different. Not having children, I acknowledge the responsibilities that other people have that come along with that. That being said, my life and my choices are what they are, and they come with their own challenges. My wife and I 3 years ago moved to a place where we have way more property. We went from living to a place that had zero outdoor space to having multiple acres and getting more in touch with the land and having chickens and planting fruit trees and learning about permaculture and dealing with fucking pipes bursting and massive oak trees falling down on a water pipe that you don't know about because it's on the other side of your property, and then your water bill is thousands of dollars more than what it would have been.
Oh, wow.
So like there's like, the first couple of years were tough getting used to. Like, it was awesome. But when all I want to do is sit under an oak tree and read a book, but there's other responsibilities and other things that I need to do, it's caused me to just have to kind of recalibrate in some ways. As far as my wife, I mean, we're blessed. We're on a similar page with a lot of things. We're into similar work. Doesn't mean our relationship is perfect. We're always trying to kind of be better as individuals and work on our dynamic. But I mean, I couldn't ask for more support. She's an incredible human being. She lets me be me, and she honors my individuality. And I'm very blessed in that regards. So I do my thing, I do my work, she does her work, and when our paths cross, they cross. But I think the biggest challenge too, when you're someone who loves learning and loves being involved with different things, and I get moved by excitement, like the generator I am, I'm like, oh, I want to get into this and get into that. Is like, okay, I do have a wife, and she's a high value of mine. How can I be present with her, and how can I honor her? How can I take care of her in the ways that I think she deserves to be honored? And I think there's times where I do really good at that. And I think there's times where I'm way more self-absorbed and distracted. And, that's just more fuel for just introspection and going like, fuck, man, shit.
Mm-hmm.
I was on my phone way too much. I totally ignored her. How do I navigate this? You know what I mean? Like Joel said, it's a constant, like we're both committed to growth, so I'm grateful for that. But yeah, it's fun, man. It's fun.
You gotta own it when you're wrong, right?
Yeah.
I guess one thing that's coming up for me, like I'm realizing more and more, is like the quality of my relationship and of my family life really is a microcosm of the quality of what I'm able to do out in the world and the kind of work that I produce and the creative output that I have. And like, yeah, my hat says Here for the Truth. Our podcast is called Here for the Truth. But in many ways, what I've discovered really is that it's the feminine, my wife, Alyssa, like that really has this core of truth that constantly has been an orienting force in my life that, in ways that I might not understand initially or in the beginning, that where I'm out of alignment, but eventually I come to realize, because I feel like the emotions of women really don't lie in the way that we might be able to deceive ourselves in that way. So again, like everything created and produced here is also like, I think, a testament to her attunement to the truth.
Yeah. You guys,
Yeah.
And
I don't think
particularly in noticing inauthenticity that exists in terms of our dynamic.
Yeah. I think, again, I don't think Joel and I would be able to do the things that we do and the way that we do them if we didn't have the support system from our partners.
Yeah, no way.
yeah, and I would agree with that. Monica and David and Lori and myself did a joint podcast. So
It's on my list, man.
we're putting the pressure on you guys
to
to get your wives on and tell the world how they deal with you. So
it'll happen. It'll happen.
Yeah, one day.
really, I think, you guys are very balanced gentlemen. You live the wholeness principle, which isn't related to the wholeness you'll look up on the internet, but wholeness being, complete on the inside. And I think that's, obvious in the work that you guys do. And I really commend you both for the efforts you make to, be here for the truth and put out what you put out in such an authentic way. I know you guys are used to the hour and 30-minute mark on most podcasts, so I'm going to honor that. But I do want to just ask you one more further question to depart to the listeners. What are your most important lessons that you'd like to depart when it comes to individual expression, family, and friends? If you could give somebody the most important lesson you've ever learned in your life that, concerns your own individual expression or that of your family or friends, whichever.
Man, this is a tough one.
Yeah, this is tough. It's very tough. Like, I'm going to answer it and I'm going to think about it 45 minutes later and probably be like, I should have said that.
Yeah.
But man, like, for me, okay, Yerasimos mentioned before from a human design perspective that, the throat is how we manifest reality, like how we speak into existence, what we want to create. And what I've found in my life is that by being open and by being vocal about my values, about what I stand for, about what I want, about what is working for me, about what isn't working for me, that really is the sword or the machete that I carry in order to navigate myself through the jungle of life. That's what causes the malevolent forces to flee, and that's what aligns me with the benevolent forces and the people that I've met in the community. So if this, it's about not denying what you're feeling, not denying your own intuitive sense, and really vocalizing that in some way. Like, for me, my relationship with social media in terms of speaking my truth really has been a tool that's navigated my life, because everyone knows where I stand on everything, and I think that has really oriented me towards a life of authenticity in that way. So speak your truth. Speak your truth.
Well said.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, biggest lesson. Our podcast is called Here for the Truth. And I think most people would be like, oh yeah, they're going to talk about all the conspiracies that go on in the world and all of that. And it's like, yes, sort of. But man, like, what's the truth of you? What is the truth of you? If we are fractals of the whole, if we're this individual expression of this one consciousness, as some people like to say, like, what is that? What is that makes you unique? Are you tapped into it? Were you conditioned out of it based on your, like, deeply conditioned out of it based on your home life, based on social pressure? And can you find your way back? You know what I mean? And so, like, I think for me, it's like the biggest lesson was honoring that inner compass, even when that whisper, like, nah, I think you need to make a right turn. No, I think you need to leave this job. No, this relationship isn't working for you. Can you get in touch with that inner voice, that inner knowing? Even before I knew human design, I was living in some ways like that. I had these hits, but I knew, not then, I didn't know that I was an emotional authority. So I needed to take some time before I make decisions. And so if I had a hit, like, you're leaving this job, or you're going to go travel around the world, or this relationship isn't working for you, I didn't just act on it immediately. I gave myself some time before I made this decision. So I think that's helped me. Like, patience for me helped me when I made decisions. So, figure out who you are. Like, what excites you, what lights you up, what things do you want to learn? How do you want to impact other people? We're not all the same. Like, stop trying to allow yourself to be homogenized by the world and by your family, and fucking own who you are. And, like, that was the biggest lesson that I continue to learn. Like, when I stepped more into my inner truth, whatever I felt was right for me, and that fed into the next thing, which fed into the next thing. Life, truth seeking, whether it's external, internal, is not this linear process. So you have to be willing to go on these crazy little twists and turns in your life to really dive into who you are and experience discomfort and experience people fucking thinking you're crazy because you're making decisions that are different. So that's my biggest lesson, is like, do what you need to do to own yourself and be you
Mhm.
and give your gifts in the world and deal with all the shit that comes around that, you know, and hopefully, you know, when the time comes to transition or die or dissolve or whatever, like you look back and you go, man, like I lived a good life.
No regrets.
I no regrets. I lived a good life, and like I like who I am. I like
Yep.
who I am right now as I'm about to go to wherever it is we go next.
Here for the truth of who you really are.com. Wouldn't take too long to type out, but
Well, bro, you've really mastered that monologue, man. I'll have to read over that script again.
I
Well
think I
done.
just channeled it, dude. I think a voice just came to me, you know.
well, what did you say when I was with you guys last? That's a clip.
Yeah,
That's a clip. Yeah, that's it.
So feel free to clip this, guys, if you want. But
yeah.
well,
Totally.
you know, I'll just say that there's two podcasts that I really like, Here for the Truth and the Unslaved podcast. Those are like in my top echelon. I listen to other things, of course, but I really feel like a connection with you guys and with the guys at Unslaved. We share a lot of the same audience, and I think we're all doing very respectful work on our own angles that come in at the truth from whatever way. It's authentic, it's inspiring, it's original. You know, these are the things that, you know, when you do this work for yourself, I think it really, you know, that authentic path of being, it'll shine through, and it makes the cloudy days less cloudy, you know. And for all our listeners who share in this great adventure of a self exploring the world, you know, here's to y'all. And I appreciate you guys very much, and thanks so much for coming on with us. Would you like to share any upcoming projects, any links, or anything like that before we say adieu?
Man, I think you've said it, man. Just hereforthetruth.com. Go listen to the podcast, and wherever you're led from there, you know, you'll end up in the right place. We do have an awesome community called Friends of the Truth, as well. You can find that at hereforthetruth.com as well. And to me, like we're just collating and collecting some of the most awesome individuals throughout this journey. We do 6 calls a month with them. We bring on previous guests from our podcast for intimate live conversations with our members only. Just a really good time, because I think community is really important, man, in the midst of all this chaos that we're experiencing right now. To be able to have a home base of people who get you, and a place where you can be heard and be vulnerable and be real and connect is crucial.
Very good. Well, guys, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show, and I hope that your audience continues to grow and more people take the course. Some really good stuff out there. Be here for the truth. If you're not,
Yeah.
Matt, let me honor you real quick, man, because thank you so much for holding this space, bro. Like I got so much love and respect for you, dude. I know you've been at this a long time, and to me, man, I just see you as this rock, bro. I see you as a big brother. I see you
Thanks,
as a
man.
mentor, and I'm so incredibly grateful to be able to, you know, go to you at times as well, as a space to be heard and get some feedback.
Yeah.
So lots of love, bro.
Yeah, dude.
Excellent.
I mean, I echo what Joel said, and just deep respect, man. I remember starting the Unslaved podcast from episode 1, and you're one of the first guests. And I was like, man, this is a cool dude that drops a lot of knowledge and wisdom. And, you know, again, little did I know, a few years later, 4 years later, whatever that is, I don't know when they started the podcast, 2016, 2017, that like, you know, we'd be having this conversation, man. And you'd be on our podcast a few times. And I think that's incredible. I think it's amazing. You're so creative in so many ways. You're cool too, and you're grounded and you're down to earth, and you have a sense of humor. I think sometimes a lot of
Make
people
me cry, bro.
Yeah, let's go. I think a lot of times people lose a sense of humor too in this kind of work. And I think that's something I like to bring to the table, you know, is just like, yeah, this could be deep, like interpersonal work, you know, relationships, truth seeking, and like also like fucking you gotta laugh. You gotta make jokes, you know, and so like I like that we can kind of joke as well. And yeah, man. Just keep doing your
Yeah.
thing, dude, giving your gifts. You're a fucking legend.
Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate you both. I'm going to cut it out to a video by Joel. One more song, Didn't Want to Be Right. And you guys can either hang out or not, but we'll see you on the other side. And thanks to everybody. Visit hereforthetruth.com. And I appreciate y'all, my listeners, and hope we continue to grow this audience and see more podcasters come onto the scene. We are the new media. Cheers.
look around and I see them in a daze. I see people be wishing for better days. I see blame, I see envy, I see guilt and pain. I see fear in their eyes and aversion to change. They've lived their whole life scared, looking for another savior, their discernment impaired. Too afraid of shadows, they keep their eyes to the glare. But the light's not what it seems, buyer beware. They gave up all their power to a system on hope and prayer. Now Babylon is fallen, so pull the proverbial chair. Nobody there behind the curtain, nobody gonna save you. It's time to meet Hades, that's for certain. Times like these, they weren't meant for everybody, but for those who did the work, there's now a feeling of samadhi. Some of us saw it coming, maybe not to this extent. Some of us told you, but now's not the time to vent. I didn't wanna be right. Sometimes I wanna go back 2009, but I came here for a reason, and I will stand bleeding for freedom. I didn't wanna be right. Sometimes I wanna go back to an easier night. Babylon falling on the weight of itself, so carry on calling from your center heartfelt. Freedom is just a responsibility assumed. Responsibility ignored is how they snuck in the door. Now it's open and there's a chance for us to learn and to enhance. So we grab a wild scene, turn the lock and take the key. It's time to realize there's something deeper at play. Do you feel what I feel? Do you feel what I say? The great mirror holds answers, a chance to advance us. But you must be willing to look if you're gonna be the commander, man. How many times must we repeat? Shane told me it's been 7 from inside of the machine. Looking from Zion, I'm keeping my eye on the growing reliance, religion of science, fear of the unknown, God I'm desperate for a bone. A shot in exchange for normality in a cage, altering DNA as a way to replace what it means to be human and the shadows we must face. I didn't wanna be right. Sometimes I wanna go back 2009, but I came here for a reason, and I will stand bleeding for freedom. I didn't wanna be right. Sometimes I wanna go back to an easier night. Babylon falling on the weight of itself, so carry on calling from your center heartfelt. I didn't wanna be right. Sometimes I wanna go back 2009, but I came here for a reason, and I will stand bleeding for freedom. I didn't wanna be right. Sometimes I wanna go back to an easier night. Babylon falling on the weight of itself, so carry on calling from your center heartfelt. I didn't wanna be right. I didn't wanna be right. I didn't wanna be right.